can watch these sermons and the choir in the privacy of your home if you don't make it here on Sunday morning. So just go to YouTube, Divine Redeemer Presbyterian Church. So anyway, so we've been looking at this letter of John in which the central theme, the central focus has been knowing that we are in God because we experience and we offer love. Love is the sign that we belong to God and that we are living in God. We have known that love most completely and most fully in Jesus Christ, the one in whom the fullness of God's presence dwelt, so that we could discover that we too can live in the fullness of that presence. We too can be agents of that love in the world. He writes today and he says, I've written all of these things to you so that you not be afraid or anxious or worried about whether or not you are living in God's eternal life. Whether or not that eternal life of God belongs to you or not. I don't want you to be anxious about that. Now, in Spanish, there's two wonderful words for the word that we use in English, to know. There's, you guys help me, saber and conocer, right? In Spanish, there's a distinction between knowing something with your brain and knowing something with your heart and with your experience of your life. It's possible to know something in your head. To know, in English, it would be more like to say we know about something as opposed to knowing something. All right? And it is possible to know a lot about something without ever knowing it. You could read textbook after textbook in a science class about the physics of light and of cloud vapor and of the atmosphere and the way they interact with each other. But until you stand in front of that sunset exploding in the sky in front of you, you will not know what that is like, right? You may know about it, but you won't have experienced it until you are there to presence it. You can hear somebody tell you all the ingredients that go into mole. Peanuts or peanut butter and chocolate and chile and all kinds of spices you might not even know how to pronounce. And you can hear all that and know all that. But by golly, until you taste that stuff, you have no idea how good it is. Right? The same thing is true with God. The same thing is true with God. There are folks who spend their lives sitting in pews, hearing sermons, studying, reading, thinking about things theological and religious, who don't ever experience God's presence and love and mercy in a lived way. And I think that's what John is talking about today. How can we know that we are living in the eternal life, the abundant life that God has for us? It's possible to know, to understand with our brains, but not to experience with our heart. I've been listening over the last 7 weeks to a podcast Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul podcast, where she's interviewing best-selling author Eckhart Tolle, who is the author of a book a number of years ago that became extremely popular called The Power of Now, Living in the Present. How to live in the present moment. One of the things that Eckhart is attempting to communicate is how important it is for us to learn to live the actual moment we are in and be present to it. Because this moment that we are in is the only moment when we actually have access to the fullness of life that God offers us. We can't live yesterday, today, right now. I can't live tomorrow, right now. I can only live right now, right now. But it is absolutely true that I can be living this moment right now and not be present to it. Because I have pulled in the pain from my past, which I cannot let go of. Or because I have pulled into this moment my anxiety about what's coming. And so I can't be present to this moment. For example, when I lead worship, it is really important to me to be in worship. But it is fully possible for me to have just had a really hostile conversation with somebody and then have to walk into worship, and I can either drag that with me and continue running it through my head over and over and over again, what I should have said, what I didn't say, what I meant to say, what I really want to say. Or I can let that go and be here. Or I could be trying to lead worship while my brain is already on the session meeting and that contentious thing that I know we're going to talk about, and the fact that I've got 3 people on one side of it and 2 people on the other side, and I don't know how it's going to go down, and I really want it to go this way, and how can I manipulate the situation to make it go the way I want? I can be there while I'm here. But by God, I'm not worshiping if that's true. I'm completely unable to be present to the presence of God if I'm letting the pain of the past or the anxiety of the future to dwell in me. Eckhart Tolle says, learning how to be in the moment you are in is the key to being able to experience the abundance of God's life that is made available to us. It's like that meal that I eat while I'm driving 75 miles an hour down the highway to get to church or to get home at 8 o'clock after a meeting, and I haven't eaten, and my stomach's rumbling, and I'm hungry, and I grab something and I chow it down while I'm driving, and I'm not present either to the road or to my food. And I get very little benefit from that way of being. But what about worship? What about just the experience of being here in worship? To be present in worship would mean that when I come in, I take in the gift of this space. The gift of the men and women who created the beauty of this space. And I allow it to speak to my soul. It means when I'm singing a hymn, I'm actually paying attention to the words that I say, or I'm allowing the music to live in me so that I can experience the gift of God's love and power in those words and in that song. It means I pay attention when I'm reading with everybody else those words of a prayer of confession, listening for where does that speak to my own experience? And how can I turn that over to God today? Means perhaps when I listen to the sermon, I'm not just trying to figure out where I disagree with the pastor on that morning. But instead can be open to something that might speak life to my heart. And maybe at the benediction, instead of trying to figure out where my keys are, I can welcome it as a fountain of life being poured over me in that moment. You see, it's possible to be here, but not be here. It's possible to know that God's around somewhere, but not to touch the gift of that presence that's being held out to us. So as we close these reflections from John's letter, may we lay hold of the assurance that the presence of God is here for us, but not just right here. Out there as you leave, in the gift of each moment and each day, each person, each plant, each sunrise and sunset. Even in the gift of the awareness of our failures, God is there and invites you to be present so that you can hold it and so that you can know it. Let's pray. Amoroso Dios, gracias por tu presencia constante y abundante en nuestro alrededor. Concédenos la gracia de poder estar en este momento y en cada momento posible para no estar distraído por el pasado y ansioso por el futuro, y así poder disfrutar el regalo que nos ofreces de tu propia presencia. Por Cristo te lo pedimos. Amén. invite Leo to come up and share a few words of gratitude for some of the leadership that our Troop 52 has enjoyed over the years.
Good morning. Today is Scout Sunday. Today we recognize the scouting program, the scouts themselves, the adult leaders, and the supporters of scouting. So I want to do that here real quickly. First of all, let me start with the scout leaders. These people put in a lot of hours, a lot of work, their own money, definitely their own time, and their talents. So could I have the members of the committee stand, including our scoutmasters, Buddy, stay up, Buddy. A lot of names here. So, Buddy,
can Kathy stand up? Or she too pregnant?
Oh, no, we'll get you. Who's in there? I did, okay, oh. You hear something? Okay, Stephanie Portales, Porfirio and Nina Lopez, Kathy, soon to be Mama Vasquez. Where are you, Kathy? Yay. People that up until last year were very important members and still support our troop very much. Jesse and Mary Deverman.
Yeah.
There are some people in the congregation that help us out. So, Liddy Valdez. Servando Martinez, Nancy Garcia, Peña, Sally Rios. They're forced labor because they were late. Margie Cornejo, Kate Shepard, and the men's group who has financially supported us through the last few years. So thank you very much. Folks, this is the village of Troop 52. Troop 52, if you didn't know, as best as we can tell, was originally started in 1934, maybe 36, not sure there. And shortly thereafter, a gentleman that we all know and remember and love as Mr. X became the Scoutmaster. And I did some research, and his obituary said that he was involved in scouting for 66 years. When his health began to fail, he had to step down. The troop disbanded for a little bit, but in 2008, I believe, it was restarted, and shortly thereafter, Xavier Buddy Vasquez became the Scoutmaster and has been the Scoutmaster up until January this year. So, Buddy, please stand, sir. To say this and make sure that everybody understands. Buddy is not leading scouting. He has stepped down as Scoutmaster and is Assistant Scoutmaster, but he's still involved in scouting, just like his dad. It's in his DNA. He can't quit. So I want to tell you a little bit about Buddy because we want to honor and thank Buddy today.
Yeah.
Yeah, the goals of scouting are character development, citizenship training, and personal, emotional, and mental fitness. And I want to tell you a little bit about what Buddy has done towards those ends. And if you remember the 12 points of the Scout Law, you can see where everything in scouting is aimed at those 3 goals. So Buddy, as a Scoutmaster, has exemplified those goals. He's touched many people's lives. I wish you could have been here this morning to hear Mrs. Calderon, one of the boys' parents, tell about her experience with scouting. It was really great and a great tribute to Buddy. So here's 3 quick stories. One story that she told me was her oldest boy was in the Scouts. And she said he didn't want to go. She said, just go 3 times, and after 3 times, if you don't like it, you can quit. And by the 3rd time, he was hooked. Okay? The story she told me is that her 2 younger sons, that we affectionately know as 1/3 and 2/3, because they're 2/3 of triplets, couldn't wait to get into Scouts because they saw what their older brother had experienced. And she told me that when they came into the troop last year, went on the first camp out, the older brother said, "Cuídena, señor, Buddy. Take care of Mr. Vasquez." That's how much he appreciated Buddy. Story number 2 is a dad from the neighborhood who was heavily involved in crime and drugs and just going the wrong way in life, had spent time in prison, came to Buddy and said, "Please save my son. I don't want him to go down the same road that I have gone through." And so he brought him to Buddy because he knew what Buddy and the Scouts could do. Unfortunately, it was too late. The father waited too long, and I think that boy has served some time or he's in prison right now, right, Buddy?
Right.
It didn't work with him, but the father knew what Buddy could do. And the 3rd story is one that really touches me. When a Scout advances in rank, he gets 2 pins that we know as a mom pin and a dad pin. To pin on his parents, because parents are such an important part of scouting. I guess the first Eagle Scout that I saw advance to Eagle must have requested 3 pins. Because he took the 3rd dad pin and pinned it on Buddy. That's how much he thought of Buddy. Buddy has taken people into his home, maybe when things got rough at their home. He has given boys jobs to help them and their families. He's a dad. And I don't know what else you can say about Buddy and his character and what he has done. So Buddy, we want to thank you. We want to honor you today. Now, this is temporary. I couldn't get him to stand still long enough to take a decent picture. So Kathy sent me something and we cropped it. And this is a picture of Buddy in our Scout meeting room. There's a picture of his dad. This is going to go right next to him.
I'd just like to say that everybody else can sit down. It makes my heart just break to see so many of my former Boy Scouts here. I don't know how they put this together to get everybody here, but I got 4 of my first original Eagle Scouts are here today. Would you 4 guys please stand up? These 4 boys have worked their way all the way to the top. And some of them have come back to help. Eddie is one of them who came back and asked me, all of them have asked me if they could come back and work with the boys, and that door has always been open to them. And it's just great to see these boys get educated and find a way to get out of this neighborhood and make something out of themselves. And that's what my dad was all about, and that's what I tried to do, following his footsteps. So I think I'll sit down now.
I have two favors to ask of the congregation. First of all, I know that many of us after the service go out the side door. Go out the front door today, please, because Buddy, if you will accompany Rob to the back door, go out the front door so that you can stop and shake Buddy's hand and thank him personally, please. And then the other favor is, well, there's two favors. Don't forget, Almost Ya is having their Chile Relleno sale in the fellowship hall. And over towards the back of the fellowship hall to celebrate Buddy, we're going to have cake, punch, and coffee. So go get your lunch and then come have dessert with us in the back of the hall. And I think that is it. Thank you very much.